YouTube, what the crap's going on? Welcome to the Call of the Beastmen. I'm going to have several videos all lined up for you today that are going to be covering what comes in the DLC and just kind of showcasing a little bit and then giving you my thoughts as well. Do understand up front, I have only gotten to play, so the Creative Assembly did give me this early to take a look at, obviously, because the game, or the content still isn't out yet. I have only gotten to play about an hour of campaign, and then I did a couple of hours worth of work with Prince of Macedon, just in kind of just a couple of testing scenarios in multiplayer. So I do not have a ton of time in this DLC, so I will kind of review it live with you as I play some. But just want to cover the content, and just in terms of content, what do you get? So if you buy the DLC, you will be able to use the Beastmen as an unlockable faction. And here they are in custom battle. You will also get access to two other things in the campaign. You will have the grand campaign, and Beastmen are now an option. You can even take a look at their start position here. So they start down here in the southwestern realm of the map in the forest. You have an option of 2 lords in the campaign. So if I hit continue, you can either pick Kazrak the One-Eye, which is a melee lord, or you can pick Malagor the Dark Omen, which is a lore of, I'm trying to remember now if he's, lore of the Wild. So, and he's a Bray Shaman. So yeah, those are your options. The starting difficulty is hard. You're going to start out near some Empire sub-factions like Tylea and Astalia. They are a Horde faction, but they're slightly different than Chaos. The best way I can describe them from the experience I've had is it feels like the halfway point between Greenskins and Chaos. And their units, we'll talk more about them in a moment, but that's just kind of the feel that I get, on the campaign map. Well, what about the new campaign? What does it look like? An Eye for an Eye has its own map. The only playable race is the Beastmen, and for the most part you are surrounded by Empire sub-factions, and it is basically a big fight between Boris Todbringer and Kazrak the One-Eye, so you can only play as Kazrak the One-Eye. There are some other Beastmen tribes on the map that you can deal with diplomatically, and of course, like I said, there's a lot of Empire factions there. I even saw some Greenskins in that campaign. I don't know the full extent of it because I haven't gotten real in depth with that map, but the map is bigger than I expected for a mini campaign, and it's a little bit different. There's a lot of forest for you to use for cover moving around, and again, you play as the nomadic faction there, and your goal is to destroy Marienburg basically, and to make sure that Boris Todbringer is in a wounded state. So that's kind of your overall goal in this campaign. What I've played of it so far is pretty fun. I don't know what I'm doing, so I actually got squashed a couple of times because the AI just sent 3 or 4 stacks after me. It wouldn't stop chasing me, and you only start with 1 stack. So clearly there's going to be some strategy involved in the beginning of kind of how you get yourself established and stay safe. And I'll have to figure that out for myself. But it's definitely, like I said, going to be kind of a mix of Chaos and Greenskin. So you get this mini campaign, and you can also use them here. So what does the faction look like? Let's head out to custom battle, and I will show you all the units on the battle map. A couple other things that kind of come for free to everybody, I believe. Don't quote me on this, I could be wrong. It's possible that maybe these underground forest maps are only available to those who bought the DLC, but I think these would probably just be part of the update, since you can possibly, so if you didn't buy the DLC, you can still fight against the Beastmen in campaign, but you obviously won't have access to them to play in custom battle, or you won't be able to play as them in campaign. So they have some of these underground forest maps, which are pretty interesting. They're an underground map, but it has all this crazy pulsating forest insanity, and it's very interesting ambiance when you play in it. So I'll show you one of those maps, and we can look at the Beastmen within their realm. It really is pretty interesting. I think there's just a few of them there. The Heart of the Dark, Great Forest, and then I think it's the Black Deeps and Shadow Forest. Yeah, so those are the ones. We'll go into let's go into the Great Forest. It'll be a cool map to look at. So got the Beastmen here. I'm just gonna pick a CPU faction and just throw throw a single lord on here. There we go. We'll try and, well, I can't get one of every unit, but we'll go ahead and show you. You have access to a Beastlord, which is basically like a mini version of Khazrak, obviously not as strong. You have access, or no, sorry, yeah. And then here's Khazrak, and then here's Malagor. You might be wondering, like, well, why in the world is the wizard way more expensive than Khazrak, the melee character? We'll explain that, because previously wizards tended to be cheaper than the melee lords. Well, sometimes, it just depends on if they were like a combination like von Karstein. But I'll explain all the different stuff with lords in another video. We'll just kind of keep things focused here. So again, Beastlord, Khazrak the One-Eye, or Malagor the Dark Omen. In terms of heroes, you have this Gore Bull, which is a melee specialist unit, kind of like you would see with like an Empire Captain or a Thane or anything similar to that. It is anti-large, which is pretty cool. It also does armor-piercing damage, and then you can see all the different stats here. 420 weapon strength, 30 bonus versus large, 280 damage, armor-piercing. That's pretty potent, and with 4,000 health, I mean, this is a pretty sturdy unit. 100 armor. I mean, nothing wrong with this right here. Not particularly high melee attack, but nice charge bonus. If you take a look, you can. These are all the skills that you can. And again, I'll explain all this in another video. But if you're going to get a Gore Bull, there's no mounts with it. You can pick abilities. Again, just bear with me. Gonna explain all of this later. But these are the different abilities that you have available to you down here. So let's just take a look. There's missile resistance. It's a siege attacker, so it can break down gates. Causes fear amongst other units. It encourages nearby friendly units. You can hide in the forest. You get Slaughterer's Call, which has the effects you see there. It affects all allies in range, so that's kind of helpful. You also get Blood Greed, which affects all targets in range, again there. And you're going to have Foe Seeker, and then Deadly Onslaught. And you can see that these coordinate down here. Now, one thing that's different is you have items that you can choose from too. And we'll be covering those, as I've said now, at least 4 times in a different video. But I'm just making sure you all know I am going to cover it. You have access to 3 different lores of magic with the Beastmen, which is going to make them pretty flexible. You have Lore of Death, which is obviously going to be a popular choice for a lot of people. You have the Bray Shaman, who's the Lore of Beast, and then the Bray Shaman, who's the Lore of the Wild. And we'll cover these new lores of magic again in a separate video as well, because I want to give them some time to cover. Ungor Spear Herd, cheap spearman. That's all there is to it. Low armor, cheap spearman. Ungor Spear Herd with shields, same thing, except it has a missile block chance. Uncor Herd, these are going to be like your basic axe infantry, so like kind of your basic stuff. They do have stalk, which means that the unit can move hidden in any terrain, so that's kind of a cool feature to be aware of. And they are Vanguard deploy, as are many units. So most units are going to be a Vanguard deploy. Let's just make sure we look at the special abilities and all these. Charge defense versus large, can hide in the forest, and then it's got this Primal Fury. It's a constant thing where they get extra melee attack and charge bonus, all this other stuff, immune to psychology. So this is just something to bear in mind there. So even their cheap units have this. So again, charge defense against large with the other spears. The Uncor Herd, and these ones are not Vanguard deploy. These 2 spear units are a couple of the units that are not Vanguard deploy. Uncor Herd again, still has the stock ability, still has Primal Fury. Decent, just kind of baseline melee infantry for the price. Gore Herd with shields is going to be obviously an axe infantry with shields. You're going to get a little more defense, a little missile block chance, probably sacrificing attack is typically the way these things... Actually, no, it's just better. More hit points. It's not a Vanguard deploy unit, though, so be aware of that. So a little more defense, can't Vanguard deploy. Gore Herd is where you're going to start getting a little more capability. Out of the unit is a Vanguard deploy, and if we start comparing them to the Uncor Herd, you're going to see, increased charge. Just in general, if we pick both, you're going to see the difference in stats there with the little lines. So better leadership, better melee attack, better charge bonus, a little more health, all that kind of stuff. Again, only Vanguard deploy as the ability, but all of these guys can hide in the forest, and they have that Primal Fury. Bestigor Herd, or Beastigor Herd, whatever it's called. These guys are going to be your armor-piercing infantry. They actually have really good armor, which is pretty darn rare for any Beastman units. This is going to be one of the few units that has a good amount of armor on it. And at 1,000, I don't know how these guys stack up head to head with Black Orcs. I'll have to test it out, but you know, they're gonna be kind of that same idea. So what you're gonna get out of them. There's only 60 units there, so I'm assuming these are pretty tanky. These guys also cannot Vanguard deploy. So let's take a look from there on out. There is one missile infantry unit. Its range is quite limited. Missile damage is nothing spectacular, and ammunition's pretty standard with poor leadership, though it can Vanguard deploy. In terms of speed, I mean, it's not particularly fast. We kept getting told that Beastmen are very fast faction, and some of their units are, but if you look here, speed on this archer is 33, and speed on this one is 35. It's not a huge difference. Could a couple of speed make a difference? Yes, but if a unit gets into a charge animation, it won't be enough. So the Beastmen do tend to maybe be just a little bit faster than some others, but they're not like wicked fast, like running around like horses with the whole army. So, I mean, again, some of their units are fast, though, so just be aware. Here's their cavalry. You have Centaurs. You know, as a cheap cavalry unit goes, these guys don't have a lot of armor, but they are pretty effective at mopping up skirmishers and routing units. They are not particularly cheap. They do, again, have this rowdy along with primal fury. So these are both, they're immune to vigor, which is pretty cool. It means these guys aren't going to get tired, and that comes in pretty handy because you can see their speed here is really quite solid at 85. So not faster than like a Pegasus or something, but pretty quick. And they can Vanguard deploy, which is going to make these guys a pretty handy unit for harassing cavalry, skirmishers, sword units, all that kind of stuff. Centaurs with throwing axes. This is obviously meant to be a missile cavalry. If you take a look at the missile damage here, it's got pretty decent armor piercing. So you know, this could potentially be a good unit, especially if it is immune to vigor, so that could be helpful. As long as it can stay in front and it can throw backwards. I haven't checked that yet. I'm guessing though that melee wise this unit stacks up. So let's see, yeah, better melee attack, better melee defense on the regular Centaurs. So that's the trade-off. You get a little bit of missile, but you're going to give up some of the melee attack and melee defense. You're going to have the Centaurs with great weapons, which are going to just be more focused against armor. So they have slightly more armor themselves, and again, if we just compare them to the standard Centaur, you can see here most of the stats are almost identical. The biggest difference is just going to be right here in the weapon strength. You get 27 armor piercing, whereas with the standard Centaur, you're going to get only 7 armor piercing, so it kind of flips that damage, basically. So these guys are going to be better if you're trying to rear charge heavily armored units, or to maybe take down, you know, anything that's got heavy armor on it. But you'll notice none of these units have a bonus versus large, so just be aware of that. You have a Razor Gore chariot. Chariots in this game, to me, can be good, but they can also be take a lot of babysitting. This one's no different than like the what do you call it, the Chaos chariot or something. I don't remember all the names of them, but anyway, it's pretty much the same idea. It can plow through units. If this thing gets stopped, though, it's in trouble. In terms of monsters and beasts, you have the Chaos Warhounds, both standard and poison. And you also have Chaos Spawn that are available here. So those 3 units are going to be the same. There's a Giant, which is maybe a slightly different variety. I'd have to look and see if there's any real differences between this Giant and others. I'm assuming, yeah, I mean, you can see the armor. And this one, though, has leadership of 100. Is that the same? Because it seems like you can get Giants to rout pretty easy sometimes. So I wanted to check and see if that's the same. Giant. Yeah, it's 100 here, so I would assume that it behaves very similarly to the Giant for the green skins. So you have Razor Gore Herd, which is monstrous beast. So this is going to be kind of like a monster cavalry unit, and you can just kind of see here that it's geared to be armor piercing and anti-infantry. So these guys would be obviously ideal for rear charges into heavy infantry. Minotaurs, these guys are pretty interesting. Let's take a look at them. You've got several different varieties. You have Minotaurs, Minotaurs, whatever you want to call these guys. I'll call them Minotaurs, I guess. So you have 3 different varieties. One at 1400, one at 1500, one at 1600. Obviously, regular Minotaurs, they have, you know, decent armor piercing damage. That's really high weapon strength, and quite a lot of it's armor piercing. They do not have a lot of armor, which means that they are going to be pretty vulnerable to missiles. but they have pretty solid speed at 56, so they're going to be pretty quick. These guys, Minotaurs with shields, obviously now you're going to get a block chance, and that's going to be a big deal. Is you know, having, it says right here, block 50% of all missiles. So this is going to keep your Minotaurs a little bit more shielded, but I'm assuming that they trade. Yeah, so they trade some melee attack to get the shields, is pretty much what it is. Melee attack and charge bonus is what they trade for the shield. Then you have Minotaurs with great weapons. I mean, these guys already have pretty solid armor piercing. If we come here and look, let's see what the big difference is. They get a bonus versus large, is pretty much the difference. So same armor piercing damage for the most part, you just get a bonus versus large. So these are going to be good at probably trying to take out other monsters or cavalry units. So an interesting unit in that respect, especially since you don't have an anti-cavalry cav up here. You have these guys, and they do run in roughly the same price range as, say, like a Blood Knight or others, though I haven't gotten to test them head-to-head. Artillery, you have access to a Sai Gore. Basically, this is a giant monster that throws a huge rock. That's the easiest way to describe it. So let's get in here and get as many of these different units as we can, just so you can see them. I'm going to throw Kazrak in here so you can see him. Gorbel. Let's get all the different Bray Shamans. I'm going to switch to large armies. And I'm going to clear off the green skin roster. So we can get all these guys in here. Alright, let me just select one of each unit. There we go. It says I don't have enough funds either, so let's swap the funds over to Ultra. There we go. I think it probably gave the greenskins another army again, so alright. Perfect. Let's start the battle so you can see these units, and I'm going to go ahead and cut this one off here, and I'll have another video where I'm going to talk about the magic, and then I'll give you all another video where I'm going to be walking through the Eye for an Eye campaign. And then, of course, I will bring you some online battles with these guys as soon as I can. Do keep an eye on Prince of Macedon's channel. He's going to have some stuff up that we tested together that was pretty fun. We had a good time. Enjoyed it. So keep an eye out for that. I'm going to just line all these guys up, and we're going to take a look at them. So, all right. I'm going to start the battle and then pause it so that we can walk through all these guys. Here's all your different Bray Shamans, well, including Kazrak. So it's going to go Kazrak, Lore of Beast, Lore of Death, Lore of the Wild. So let's just take a look at all these different character models. So pretty sweet. Kazrak, the One Eye here. Gigantic sword, the crazy whip that makes Indiana Jones look like he's kind of a wuss. Nice, like, skull thing on his head. Looking very menacing. Here's your Bray Shaman. All of them look fairly similar. In fact, pretty much exactly the same, maybe. A slight difference between this guy has like different horns and stuff like that. So yeah, again, Death, Wild. Well, I don't know if it's in that exact order, but you have Lore of Death, Lore of the Wild, and you have Lore of Beast, I think is what it is. So right here we've got our Gorbel. You can see he is a big feller. And, you know, again, all melee focus, so kind of a big monster hero unit, which is pretty cool. And this guy is, just to remind you all, he's going to be dealing your armor-piercing anti-large damage. So pretty sweet support unit, to be honest, and looks, again, quite menacing. Here's your Uncor Herd. Let me get a zoom in on these guys so you can see them. So there they are, kind of like half man, half beast. Pretty cool looking. They're kind of like Tomless off of, what's that movie? The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. They look exactly like him. And wasn't he wielding a spear or something like that? Here's your Ungor Spearmen with shields. Pretty much the same thing, except they have those nice, nifty little shields. As we just keep moving down the line, here's our next unit here, which is Uncor Herd. These are your basic axe infantry. Just get a look at them. Look a lot like Tomless still with a shield and an axe. I'm pretty sure he looked like that. Okay, I'm going to quit. Gore Herd with shields, so again, slightly upgraded infantry. You can see their shields here. They're looking a little more bestial, a little less man-like as you move into these better units. And then you got Gore Herd, just standard Gore Herd. Again, same thing. No shield, just an axe in each hand. So let's take a look down the line. There's more Gore Herd. Here's your Bestigor Herd, Beastigor Herd, you know, whatever these guys. I'm guessing Bestigor because there's not an A there. But yeah, big dudes looking particularly menacing. These are kind of like like I said, these are kind of like the equivalent of Black Orcs and stuff, though I'm not sitting here saying they take them head to head. I haven't tested that. But that's kind of what their meaning is. They're big, heavy, armored infantry. Let's move to the back line and take a look at these. This is your Sai Gore here. This is a pretty interesting creature. Creative Assembly already showed him off. Big nasty dude with one eye, and he will throw this giant boulder at very long ranges, and it does do massive damage to blobbed infantry. Massive damage. It's not particularly accurate versus like flying units. If they're going in a straight line, he'll probably hit them. If they're dodging, he probably won't. Can be a useful unit, and I'll show you more about that at a later date. Here's some of your Minotaurs. So these are the ones with great weapons. So you can see they have the big two-handed axe. Let's get a quick close-up of them. So again, very good-looking units. Let's move on over here. Here we've got the giant. Yeah, so definitely a different-looking giant, even though I'm assuming that his stats are going to be fairly similar to the other ones. Woo, nasty character. Nasty. Let's take another look here. So Minotaurs with shields should be similar, except without the big giant two-handed axe and with a shield. Pretty straightforward. And then here's your Chaos Spawn. We've seen these guys before. And then your standard Minotaurs are right here. You can see that they just have an axe in each hand. Go past the Chaos Spawn. Here's your Razor Gore Herd. So these are kind of like Arkansas Razorbacks, except, you know, slightly dead-looking and covered in spikes. Just kidding. Had to make fun of Arkansas while I was in here because I lived there. Here's your Poison Chaos Warhounds, your standard Chaos Warhounds. Razor Gore Chariots is basically just a chariot being hauled behind the Razor Gore, Razor Gore, yeah, I guess that's what it's called. Here's your Centaurs. Let's see which varieties with great weapons. So you can see they have the big blade there. These are some pretty nasty guys too. I mean, that nose ring has got to be getting filthy. Let's take a look at some of the rest of these units. Centaurs with throwing axes right here. Take a zoom up on them. It looks like they have a spear and then they'll throw axes as well. They got one in that other hand. And I think that's about it. I think there should be like one standard Centaur somewhere, and maybe I missed it. But that's all the units. So hopefully y'all enjoyed getting to see this. I'll be back with more Beastmen, but this was just to be a quick overview of them as a faction. And I will see you on the next video.